When a pope dies, rituals of confirmation and protection of legacy. In the heart of Vatican City, when a pope draws his final breath, an ancient choreography begins, one that has been perfected over centuries through both triumph and tragedy. The passing of a pope represents far more than the death of a religious leader. It marks a moment when time itself seems to pause as the world's smallest sovereign state prepares for a critical transition of power. Every gesture, every word, every object holds profound significance in this solemn theater of tradition. While the outside world may continue its frantic pace within these sacred walls, the Vatican's clock ticks to a different rhythm. Deliberate, measured, and steeped in symbolism that connects the present moment to 2 millennia of Christian history. The gravity of this transition cannot be overstated. Unlike other world leaders whose deaths trigger constitutionally prescribed successions, the Catholic Church enters a period known as sede vacante, the empty throne, a liminal time when the Church is without its visible head. This interregnum demands precise protocols, developed through centuries of sometimes chaotic transitions, to ensure both spiritual continuity and institutional stability. The ritual of death confirmation, the silver hammer in modern methods. When the Pope's health fails beyond recovery and his breathing ceases, the first critical ritual begins not with public announcement, but in the private stillness of his personal chapel. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the current Camerlengo Chamberlain, would take command of the Vatican in this interim period. The room would hold only essential witnesses, personal physicians, close clerical confidants, and the Cardinal Camerlengo himself. In centuries past, this confirmation followed a ritual now known as the Silver Hammer Protocol. Standing beside the Pope's bed, the Camerlengo would draw a small silver hammer, ornate yet functional, its handle often bearing papal insignia. With solemnity, he would tap the Pope's forehead 3 times, calling out his baptismal name with increasing volume. "George, are you dead?" The ritual's stark simplicity belied its profound purpose. In an age before modern medicine, this final physical stimulus provided certainty before pronouncing death. The silence following the third call would hang heavy in the air. Only then would the Camerlengo make his declaration, "I declare that His Holiness Pope Francis is truly dead." Though the silver hammer itself was last definitively used for Pope Leo III's death in 1903, aspects of this ritual persist. The formal calling of the baptismal name continues, though now accompanied by modern medical confirmation. When Pope John Paul II died in 2005, his death was verified through electrocardiogram readings, science confirming what tradition had already accepted. This marriage of ancient ritual and modern methodology exemplifies the Vatican's approach to transition, honoring traditions that connect present cardinals to their predecessors across centuries, while embracing practical adaptations that ensure certainty in modern times. The silver hammer itself, now likely preserved in Vatican collections, stands as a poignant symbol of how death confirmation has evolved from physical test to ceremonial declaration. The role of the Camerlengo and protection of legacy. With death confirmed, Cardinal Farrell's authority as Camerlengo immediately expands. Unlike presidential systems where power transfers to a vice president, in this interim period, the Camerlengo serves not as a temporary pope, but as guardian of the institution itself. His first duties focus on protecting the physical symbols and possessions of the pontificate from potential misappropriation. Historically, this role developed during eras when papal apartments might be looted during the confusion following a pope's death. While such threats have diminished in modern times, the protective protocols remain. The Camerlengo immediately orders the sealing of the apostolic palace, particularly the Pope's private apartments. Guards are positioned, locks secured, and inventories begun. The Camerlengo moves with purpose through spaces that only hours before belonged to the living Pope. Each document must be assessed, each personal item catalogued. Some items will be archived in the Vatican's collections, others distributed according to the Pope's wishes. This meticulous process ensures both the protection of sensitive church documents and the preservation of the Pope's personal legacy. The weight of this responsibility is evident in the Camerlengo's countenance. He has become, overnight, responsible for preserving the material connections between this pontificate and the next. Each object he catalogs represents not merely a possession, but potential history, items future generations may study to understand this pope's life and works. The destruction of the ring and seal. Symbols and meaning. Perhaps no moment in these early hours carries more symbolic weight than the breaking of the fisherman's ring. Cast in gold for each new pontificate, this ring bears the image of St. Peter casting nets from a boat, a reminder of the first apostle's humble beginnings before becoming the first bishop of Rome. More than jewelry, this ring served historically as the Pope's personal seal, pressed into wax to authenticate documents of tremendous importance. In a ceremony of solemn finality, Cardinal Farrell would gather high-ranking cardinals as witnesses. The ring that once signified papal authority must now be permanently disabled. While tradition once called for the silver hammer to smash the ring, modern practice has evolved toward precision. The ring is now typically cut with special tools, often in the pattern of a cross. As the metal yields to the cutting tools, a tangible shift occurs. The physical symbol of a specific pontificate ends, though the institution it represents continues. The witnesses observe in silence, understanding they are participating in a moment of historical transition. This destruction serves a practical purpose as well. Any document appearing afterward with this distinctive seal would be immediately identifiable as fraudulent. The lead papal seal suffers the same fate, destroyed beyond any possibility of misuse. These acts of destruction paradoxically serve to protect the integrity of the institution, ensuring that no unauthorized person can wield these symbols of papal authority during the vulnerable period of transition. In these first hours after a pope's death, the Vatican demonstrates its remarkable institutional resilience. Through rituals that bridge centuries, calling a name 3 times, cataloging possessions, destroying symbols of authority, the Church signals to its faithful that while a beloved leader has passed, the institution remains unbroken. The machinery of succession has begun its careful, deliberate movement toward selecting the next successor to St. Peter's throne. Honor and remembrance. Unwavering loyalty. With the Pope's death confirmed and his personal effects secured, Vatican attention turns to preparing the pontiff's body for public veneration. A process steeped in tradition, yet evolving with each papacy. These rituals of transition mark not just the end of a life, but the honoring of an office that has survived for 2 millennia through wars, plagues, and the rise and fall of empires. Preparing the body and the Night of 3 Pouches. Behind closed doors, within the papal apartments, a small group of trusted Vatican officials begins the solemn preparation of the Pope's mortal remains. Unlike the public spectacle to come, this is an intimate moment, the final act of personal service to the man who led the Catholic Church. Traditionally, after being washed and dressed in papal vestments, the white cassock, red shoes, and ceremonial garments of his office, the Pope's body would undergo the ritual known as the Night of 3 Pouches. This ancient custom involves placing the body in 3 distinct coverings before entombment, first in red velvet symbolizing the blood of martyrdom, then lead to protect the remains, and finally cypress wood representing the humanity of Christ. The red velvet would be arranged with careful precision, often embroidered with symbols of the Pope's papacy, his coat of arms, the keys of St. Peter, or other personal emblems. The lead casing, heavy and permanent, serves both practical preservation and symbolic enclosure. The cypress, with its distinctive aroma, has been used since ancient times for its natural preservative qualities. However, Pope Francis, known throughout his papacy for his emphasis on simplicity, modified this tradition. Rather than the elaborate triple enclosure, he directed that his body be placed in a simple wooden coffin lined with zinc, maintaining the practical purpose of preservation while emphasizing humility in death as in life. This modification reflects the pontiff's consistent message that the trappings of office should never overshadow the message of service. The Swiss Guard's loyalty, the story of 1527 and today. As preparations continue within the papal apartments, a solemn change occurs among the Swiss Guard. These men, immediately recognizable in their distinctive Renaissance-inspired uniforms of blue, red, orange, and yellow, transition to their most somber duty, protecting the Pope one final time. Their dedication reflects a loyalty forged in blood nearly 5 centuries ago. On May 6, 5027, Rome faced its darkest hour during the sack of Rome. As mercenary troops of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V stormed the city, Pope Clement VI fled to Castel Sant'Angelo through a secret elevated passageway. To cover his escape, 147 Swiss guards stood their ground against an overwhelming force of 20,000 attackers. Captain Kaspar Royst issued the order as the mercenaries breached the Vatican walls. "Stand firm for the Pope." By day's end, 147 Swiss guards lay dead on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica and in the nearby streets, cut down while buying precious time for the Pope's escape. Only 42 guards survived, those specifically assigned to escort Clement VII to safety. This sacrifice remains etched in the institutional memory of the Swiss Guard. To this day, new recruits are sworn in each May 6th, the anniversary of this ultimate demonstration of loyalty. When standing vigil over a deceased pope, today's guards carry this history in their bearing, a living link to those who gave everything for the office. During the lying in state, Swiss guards maintain a continuous presence, standing immobile in full ceremonial armor, halberds at the ready. When Pope Benedict XVI lay in state in 2022, observers noted how the guards refused to leave his side, even after St. Peter's lights were dimmed for the night. Their vigil continues unbroken, a physical manifestation of an oath honored across centuries. Lying in state at St. Peter's Basilica. Following private preparations, the Pope's body embarks on its final journey through the Vatican, transported from the Apostolic Palace to St. Peter's Basilica. This procession, though short in distance, carries profound ceremonial weight. Cardinals walk solemnly alongside, while the Swiss Guard provides both protection and honor. Upon arrival at St. Peter's, the Pope's body is placed in state, typically elevated on a catafalque, a decorative platform that raises the coffin to allow better viewing by the faithful. The positioning is deliberate, allowing tens of thousands of mourners to pass by over coming days, offering final respects to their spiritual leader. The basilica itself undergoes transformation. Regular activities cease, replaced by the rhythmic movement of mourners. Voices lower to whispers beneath Michelangelo's dome. Rows of candles cast flickering light across ancient marble. The setting amplifies the gravity of the moment. This massive Renaissance church was built precisely for moments like this, where the earthly and divine intersect. For 3 days, the Pope lies in state. Swiss guards stand at attention at each corner of the platform, relieved at regular intervals but never leaving the Pope unattended. Their distinctive uniforms and halberds form a visual frame around the deceased, a living reminder of the institution's permanence, even as its leader has passed. The meaning of public display and the world's response. This public display serves multiple purposes beyond allowing the faithful to pay respects. It represents a critical moment of transparency. The Church physically demonstrating that the Pope has indeed died, an important consideration in earlier eras when communication was limited and rumors might spread unchecked. More profoundly, the lying in state embodies the Catholic understanding of death itself, not hidden away but acknowledged as a transition, displayed with dignity while surrounded by the symbols of resurrection faith. The Pope's body, no longer animated by life but still worthy of profound respect, becomes a powerful teaching moment about human dignity extending beyond death. The world's response to this display transcends religious boundaries. When Pope John Paul II lay in state in 2005, over 4 million people converged on Rome, the largest gathering in the city's history. Mourners waited in lines stretching for kilometers, some standing through the night for a few brief moments beside his body. The average wait exceeded 13 hours, yet few complained about the discomfort. World leaders arrived from across religious and political divides. News organizations established continuous coverage. Social media fills with personal reflections from those present and watching from afar. In our fragmented world, the death of a pope creates a rare moment of global attention focused on a single human transition. Throughout these 3 days, as the seemingly endless procession of mourners continues day and night, the Swiss guards maintain their silent vigil. Their unwavering presence embodies the essential message of this period. Though individuals may pass, even those of great significance, the institutions founded on unwavering loyalty endure. As one mourner observed during John Paul II's lying in state, the guards don't just protect the Pope's body, they stand for the idea that some commitments transcend even death itself. The funeral, humility and innovation within tradition. After 3 days of public mourning, with countless faithful having passed through St. Peter's to pay their final respects, the Vatican prepares for the Pope's funeral, a ceremony that both concludes one papacy and helps prepare the Church for transition to the next. This ancient ritual has evolved over centuries, balancing unchanging elements of Catholic tradition with each pope's personal wishes and contemporary needs. The detailed funeral process. Dawn breaks on the 4th day after the Pope's death. St. Peter's Square, which has hosted an unending stream of mourners, now transforms for the funeral mass. Workers through the night have arranged rows of seating for dignitaries, cleared security perimeters, and positioned media platforms. Despite modern adjustments, the scene would be recognizable to observers from centuries past. The architectural embrace of Bernini's colonnades, focusing attention on the basilica where final rites will occur. The funeral mass itself follows a carefully prescribed liturgy, the Ordo Exequiarum Romani Pontificis, last revised under Pope John Paul II. The Pope's body, still in its coffin, is positioned before the outdoor altar, visible to all. Cardinals process in their red vestments, creating a vivid contrast against the somber black worn by many attendees and the white vestments that will clothe the celebrants. The Dean of the College of Cardinals typically presides over the funeral mass, rather than having another pope perform this function. This practice underscores the unique nature of papal transition. There is no higher earthly authority to commend this soul to God. Readings, prayers, and homilies focus on resurrection and hope, rather than dwelling on loss. The multilingual nature of the modern Church becomes evident as prayers are offered in ancient languages like Latin and Greek, alongside contemporary tongues representing the global Catholic community. When Pope John Paul II was laid to rest in 2005, prayers were offered in languages from every continent where the Catholic faith is practiced. Most striking is the absence of the eulogies typical at modern funerals. The Pope's life achievements are not enumerated. Rather, the liturgy emphasizes the office he held and the God he served. This subordination of the individual to the eternal reminds all present that even the most consequential papal reign represents merely a chapter in the Church's continuing story. Changes in coffin tradition. Pope Francis's decision. The moment of entombment reveals one of the most visible ways Pope Francis has modified papal funeral traditions. For centuries, papal burials followed an elaborate protocol involving 3 nested coffins, cypress, lead, and oak, each with specific symbolic and practical purposes. The innermost cypress coffin symbolized the humanity and mortality of the Pope. Inside would be placed ceremonial items, coins and medals minted during his papacy, a document summarizing his life and accomplishments, sealed in a lead tube, and traditional burial cloths. The middle coffin of lead, weighing over 400 pounds, served both practical and symbolic functions. Sealed airtight, it helped preserve the body while also representing the weight of papal office. Engraved on its lid would be the Pope's name, the dates of his pontificate, and his coat of arms. The outermost oak coffin provided structural protection and beauty, often adorned with carvings of the cross, the papal coat of arms, and sometimes scenes from the Pope's life. Pope Francis, however, directed a significant simplification of this tradition. In line with his emphasis on humility and rejection of excessive pageantry, he specified a single wooden coffin lined with zinc, maintaining the practical need for preservation while eliminating layers of symbolic elaboration. This decision reflects Francis's consistent message throughout his papacy, that the Church must focus on its essential mission rather than ceremonial embellishments. The coffin itself bears minimal decoration, a simple cross, no gold ornamentation, and few identifying marks beyond the necessities. Witnesses to the preparation of the Pope's final resting place have commented on how this simplification seems to amplify rather than diminish the solemnity of the moment. Without elaborate casings to focus upon, attention returns to the fundamental transition being marked. St. Mary Major Basilica. History and significance. Pope Francis's choice of final resting place represents another notable break with recent papal tradition. Rather than joining his immediate predecessors in the Vatican grottos beneath St. Peter's, Francis has selected the Basilica of St. Mary Major, Santa Maria Maggiore, as his burial site, a choice with profound historical and personal significance. This magnificent basilica, one of Rome's 4 major papal basilicas, stands on the Esquiline Hill and traces its origins to the 5th century. Legend holds that its location was revealed when snow miraculously fell on this spot in August, in Rome's summer heat. A story commemorated each August 5th when white rose petals float down from the basilica's ceiling. Francis's choice reconnects with an older papal tradition. 6 previous popes rest within St. Mary Major: Honorius III, Nicholas IV, Clement IX, Pius V, Sixtus V, and Clement VIII. Yet none has been interred there since 1669, making Francis's selection a revival of a practice dormant for over 350 years. The basilica holds particular meaning in Francis's spiritual journey. Throughout his papacy, he visited it more than 100 times, often arriving unannounced to pray before the ancient icon known as Salus Populi Romani, protectress of the Roman people. Before and after every international trip, he would stop at St. Mary Major to pray for the journey's success and give thanks for safe return. This Marian devotion has been a constant in Francis's life and teaching. By choosing burial in Rome's principal church dedicated to Mary, he creates a final testament to this aspect of his spirituality. The location also places him among ordinary Romans rather than sequestered within Vatican walls, consistent with his emphasis on a church that engages directly with the people it serves. The contrast between personal humility and ceremonial solemnity. Perhaps the most striking aspect of papal funerals in the modern era is the tension between the increasing personal humility requested by recent popes and the inherent grandeur of papal ceremonies. This creative tension produces powerful moments of contrast that speak to the dual nature of the papacy itself, both a human office filled by an individual and a divine institution that transcends any single occupant. When Benedict XVI's simple wooden coffin was carried through St. Peter's Square in 2022, it moved through a sea of red-robed cardinals, surrounded by Swiss guards in full ceremonial armor beneath the immense dome of Christendom's greatest church. The modesty of the container stood in stark contrast to the splendor of its surroundings. Yet rather than seeming contradictory, these elements complemented each other. The simple coffin humanizing the grand setting, the magnificent basilica elevating the humble casket. Francis's funeral will likely amplify this contrast further. His consistent messaging about simplicity, environmental responsibility, and focus on the marginalized has shaped his papacy. Yet the office he holds demands certain ceremonies that connect present mourners to 2 millennia of predecessors. The resulting tension creates not dissonance but harmony, a visual reminder that the Church simultaneously embraces both magnificent tradition and humble service. As one Vatican observer noted during Benedict's funeral, the simplicity of the coffin reminds us of the man, the splendor of the ceremony reminds us of the office. Together, they tell the complete story. In this balance between personal humility and institutional solemnity, the Church communicates its most fundamental belief, that greatness comes through service, and that even its highest office exists not for self-glorification, but for the good of others. The conclave, secrecy and mystery in modern times. With the Pope laid to rest, the Catholic Church turns toward its most secretive and consequential ritual, the conclave to elect his successor. This ancient process, developed over centuries of sometimes tumultuous transitions, blends medieval traditions with cutting-edge security measures to create one of the world's most mysterious electoral systems. Behind the locked doors of the Sistine Chapel, 120 men in identical scarlet robes will make a decision that affects over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. Origins and history of the conclave. The word conclave derives from the Latin cum clave, literally with a key, reflecting its defining characteristic. The cardinals are locked away until they reach a decision. This practice wasn't born from preference for secrecy, but from frustration over a papal election gone terribly wrong. After Pope Clement IV died in June 1268, the cardinals gathered in the small Italian town of Viterbo to choose his successor. What followed was the longest and most dysfunctional papal election in history. For nearly 3 years, cardinals deadlocked in factional disputes, while the church remained leaderless. The situation became so dire that local officials took drastic measures, first restricting the cardinals to bread and water, then removing the roof of their meeting place, exposing them to the elements. When they finally elected Gregory Tex in September 1271, the new pope was determined such delays would never happen again. His reforms institutionalized the enclosed conclave, mandating that cardinals be sequestered in progressively less comfortable circumstances if they failed to elect a pope quickly. These rules, with modifications, have governed papal elections ever since. The conclave's history includes dramatic moments that shaped the modern church. In 1378, fear of Roman mobs led to a hastily conducted election that eventually triggered the Western Schism, when multiple men simultaneously claimed to be pope. In 1503, the conclave that elected Julius II was allegedly influenced by simony, buying of church offices. In 1903, Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria-Hungary exercised the last veto by a Catholic monarch, blocking Cardinal Rampola's election. This interference so outraged the cardinals that they abolished the practice of secular vetoes immediately afterward. Through these controversies, the conclave process was gradually refined into its current form. A system designed to insulate the election from outside pressure while encouraging relatively swift decision-making. What once began as a desperate measure to force reluctant cardinals to choose has evolved into a carefully choreographed ritual, balancing efficiency with solemnity. Preparing the Sistine Chapel, technology and tradition. 1 week after the Pope's funeral, the Vatican begins the extraordinary transformation of the Sistine Chapel from tourist attraction to electoral chamber. This conversion represents one of the most striking intersections of ancient tradition and modern technology in the conclave process. Workers install a raised floor to protect Michelangelo's original pavement and prevent eavesdropping through underground channels. 2 cast-iron stoves appear at one end of the chapel, one for burning ballots, another for creating the chemical smoke signals that will announce results to the waiting world. In recent conclaves, chemical packets are added to produce distinctively black or white smoke, ensuring clear communication after past incidents of ambiguous gray smoke caused confusion. But the most extensive preparations involve modern security measures, invisible to casual observers. Specialized teams conduct electronic sweeps for listening devices. Technicians install Faraday cages, electromagnetic shields that block wireless signals, throughout the conclave area. Signal jammers neutralize any potential wireless transmissions. These measures reflect a distinctly modern concern. In an age of miniaturized surveillance technology, maintaining secrecy requires constant vigilance against increasingly sophisticated threats. The juxtaposition is striking. Beneath Michelangelo's immortal frescoes depicting humanity's creation and final judgment, cutting-edge counter-surveillance technology ensures 21st-century secrecy. The same chapel where Renaissance popes contemplated sacred art now houses electromagnetic shielding to block potential hackers or eavesdroppers. This paradoxical blend of ancient and ultramodern embodies the conclave's essential nature, an institution that preserves its core while adapting its methods to changing times. The final meal and sealing ceremony. The evening before voting begins, the cardinals gather for what many have described as the Last Supper of the conclave, their final meal before complete isolation begins. This dinner, in the Vatican's modern Santa Marta residence, carries a poignant atmosphere, unlike any other meal these men have shared. The conversation blends the profound with the practical. Cardinals discuss the challenges facing the Church alongside preferences for the coming election. Some use this opportunity for final persuasion efforts. Others observe in thoughtful silence. All recognize that after this night, their community will be forever altered. One among them will emerge not as a brother cardinal, but as their spiritual leader. Following this meal comes the solemn extra omnes ceremony, Latin for everyone out. Processing into the Sistine Chapel, the cardinals hear a meditation on their grave responsibility. Then the master of papal liturgical celebrations pronounces the traditional command, extra omnes. All non-electors must depart immediately. As doors close, physical keys turn in ancient locks. Electronic security systems activate. From this moment until a new pope is chosen, the cardinals remain in complete isolation from the outside world. No phones, no internet, no television, no radio, no newspapers. Even windows are covered to prevent visual contact. The conclave has officially begun. Voting process and modern security measures. Within this hermetically sealed environment, the voting process follows rituals established centuries ago, with each cardinal approaching the altar to place his folded ballot while reciting, "I call as my witness Christ the Lord, who will be my judge, that my vote is given to the one who, before God, I think should be elected." The mechanics are deliberately archaic. Handwritten paper ballots, counted manually, burned after each round. No electronic voting machines, no hanging chads, no digital records. This deliberate technological regression serves a purpose beyond tradition. It creates a voting system immune to modern hacking or tampering. Yet surrounding this medieval core are thoroughly modern security measures. Electronic sweeping devices check for unauthorized signals multiple times daily. Technicians monitor for attempted communications from outside. Even meals are carefully scrutinized. Food arrives through special secure passages after being checked for hidden messages or devices. The cardinals themselves live under strict conditions during the conclave. They reside in simple rooms at the Vatican's Santa Marta guest house. No private communication with the outside world is permitted. No personal electronic devices. Even written notes between cardinals are discouraged, except for essential matters. These security measures might seem excessive, but history justifies the caution. Past conclaves faced interference from European monarchs, political factions, and financial interests. Modern concerns include potential influence from global powers, ideological groups, or even sophisticated hacking operations. The elaborate protocols aim to ensure that when cardinals vote, they do so free from outside pressure or manipulation. In the 2013 conclave that elected Pope Francis, security reached unprecedented levels. Reports indicated that vehicles equipped with signal jammers circulated around the Vatican perimeter. Counter-surveillance experts conducted multiple daily sweeps. Electronic noise generators created audio interference against potential laser microphones aimed at windows. One official described it as creating a technological fortress around a medieval process. Black smoke and white smoke, meaning and mechanics. As voting proceeds inside this sealed environment, the outside world watches for the conclave's only communication: smoke signals from the Sistine Chapel chimney. This tradition dates back centuries, but like many aspects of the conclave, it combines ancient symbolism with modern innovation. Black smoke, signaling inconclusive voting, originally came from burning damp straw with the ballots. White smoke, announcing a successful election, resulted from burning dry ballots alone. However, this crude chemical difference often produced ambiguous gray smoke, creating confusion. Most famously, in 1958, confusing signals led some news agencies to erroneously announce Cardinal Siri's election when no pope had actually been chosen. Today, the process is more reliable. Chemical packets containing potassium perchlorate, anthracene, and sulfur produce distinct black smoke. White smoke comes from a mixture including potassium chlorate, lactose, and rosin. Electronic igniters ensure consistent burning. This modernization maintains the traditional visual signal while eliminating ambiguity. The smoke serves both practical and symbolic purposes. Practically, it provides immediate notification to the waiting world. Symbolically, the transformation from black to white smoke represents the Church's journey from uncertainty to clarity, from mourning a deceased pope to welcoming his successor. The anticipation surrounding these smoke signals creates extraordinary moments of global unity. When cardinals vote in late afternoon or evening, thousands gather in St. Peter's Square despite darkness or inclement weather. News networks position cameras for continuous coverage. Social media erupts with speculation at the first wisp from the chimney. Few other events in modern life generate such focused attention on a single chimney. During the 2013 conclave, an estimated 100,000 people stood in a rainy St. Peter's Square awaiting the outcome. When white smoke finally appeared on the conclave's second day, the crowd's reaction, a spontaneous roar followed by bells ringing throughout Rome, demonstrated the emotional power of this simple signal. In that moment, ancient tradition connected directly with contemporary experience, proving that some communications transcend technological evolution. This blend of mystery and accessibility perfectly encapsulates the conclave's dual nature, an electoral process both utterly secret in its deliberations, yet publicly announced in its outcome. The smoke signals remind us that while the Church embraces modern security measures, it maintains its connection to timeless symbols that speak directly to human understanding across cultures and centuries. The new Pope, continuity and change. When white smoke finally billows from the Sistine Chapel chimney, an electric anticipation sweeps through St. Peter's Square and around the world. The waiting is over. The Catholic Church has a new leader. Yet between this moment of announcement and the first appearance of the new pontiff lies a sequence of ancient rituals that complete the transformation of a cardinal into the 266th successor of St. Peter. This final phase of papal transition represents both an ending and a beginning, the culmination of the conclave process and the first moments of a new papacy that will shape the world's largest religious institution. The balcony moment and Habemus Papam announcement. After white smoke appears, an interlude of approximately 1 hour follows, perhaps the most suspense-filled 60 minutes in Vatican ritual. Inside the Sistine Chapel, the newly elected Pope has accepted his election with the simple Latin phrase, accepto, and has chosen his papal name. He is then led to the Room of Tears, a small chamber adjacent to the Sistine Chapel, where he dons the white papal vestments for the first time. This room earned its evocative name from the overwhelming emotions experienced by many new popes upon realizing the immense responsibility they have just accepted. One witness to Pope John Paul III's election in 1978 described seeing the new pontiff sit in silent prayer, tears streaming down his face, before emerging to greet the world. The solitary moments in this chamber represent the profound psychological transition from cardinal to pope, a man confronting his new identity as spiritual leader to over 1 billion faithful. Meanwhile, anticipation builds in St. Peter's Square. Tens of thousands gather, their numbers swelling by the minute as news of the white smoke spreads through Rome and across global media. The square becomes a microcosm of the universal church, pilgrims from every continent, speaking dozens of languages, united in this moment of collective expectation. Rain or shine, they wait, eyes fixed on the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. The dramatic reveal follows a precise choreography perfected over centuries. First, the senior cardinal deacon, currently Cardinal Renato Martino, steps onto the balcony. The square falls silent. Then comes the Latin proclamation that has announced new popes since medieval times. Annuntio vobis gaudium magnum, habemus papam. I announce to you a great joy. We have a pope. He continues, announcing the baptismal name of the cardinal who has been elected, his chosen papal name, and then steps aside. The square erupts in cheers, bells ring throughout Rome, and moments later, the new pope himself emerges onto the balcony, typically looking both solemn and somewhat overwhelmed by the moment. This balcony appearance, the first time most Catholics see their new spiritual leader, carries immense symbolic weight. Framed by the magnificent facade of St. Peter's, the Pope stands at the physical center of Catholicism, at once an individual man and the embodiment of an unbroken line stretching back to the apostolic age. The architecture itself seems designed to frame this precise moment, with Bernini's colonnades embracing the crowd like open arms while directing all attention to this single central point: the inauguration Mass and significance of choosing a new name. Days after his election, the new pope celebrates his inaugural Mass, a ceremony that has evolved significantly in recent decades. Until 1963, popes underwent an elaborate coronation ceremony with a triple-tiered crown symbolizing their spiritual, temporal, and celestial authority. However, Pope Paul VI abandoned this tradition for a simpler inauguration, replacing the crown with the pallium, a simple wool stole symbolizing the pope's role as shepherd. Pope Francis, maintaining his emphasis on simplicity, further streamlined this ceremony. Despite these changes, key symbolic elements persist. The Pope receives the Fisherman's ring, newly cast for his pontificate. He takes possession of the Basilica of St. John Lateran, technically the Pope's cathedral, as Bishop of Rome, and he formally begins exercising his teaching authority through his inaugural homily, which typically outlines themes that will define his papacy. Perhaps no choice reveals more about a new pontificate than the papal name selection. This tradition began in 533, when a priest named Mercury became pope, and, deeming a pagan god's name inappropriate for Christ's vicar, chose the name John VI. Since then, the selected name often signals continuity with predecessors or indicates priorities for the new papacy. When Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger chose Benedict XVI in 2005, he signaled both his connection to Saint Benedict, founder of Western monasticism, and to Benedict XV, a peace-minded pope during World War I. Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio's choice of Francis in 2013, never before used by a pope, immediately suggested themes of poverty, simplicity, and reform associated with Saint Francis of Assisi. This naming tradition illustrates how the papacy balances continuity and change. By choosing names from the Church's rich history, popes place themselves within an ongoing narrative while simultaneously signaling their distinct vision. The name becomes both tribute and manifesto, honoring the past while setting direction for the future. Conclusion: the interplay between tradition and innovation. The papal transition, from a pope's final breath to his successor's first blessing, exemplifies the Catholic Church's remarkable institutional ability to maintain continuity while embracing necessary change. Throughout this process, ancient rituals with medieval origins operate alongside modern innovations that respond to contemporary needs. The silver hammer, once physically tapped against a pope's head, evolves into a ceremonial calling of his name, while electrocardiogram machines confirm death. The triple coffin tradition adjusts to accommodate a pope's wish for simplicity. The conclave's handwritten ballots remain unchanged, while Faraday cages and signal jammers protect their secrecy from modern surveillance threats. This harmonious tension between preservation and adaptation reflects the Church's self-understanding as both timeless and responsive. The core remains: the need to confirm death, honor the deceased, protect the transition, and select a worthy successor, while the methods evolve to meet changing circumstances. This balanced approach allows the institution to maintain connection with its deep historical roots while remaining relevant in each new era. Perhaps most striking is how these ceremonies simultaneously emphasize both the individual and the office. The papal funeral honors a specific man, while underscoring that the institution transcends any single occupant. The conclave acknowledges human judgment while invoking divine guidance. The new pope appears as both an individual with a personal history and the latest link in an unbroken chain extending 2 millennia. As white smoke rises and bells ring throughout Rome, as a new voice offers the traditional blessing Urbi et Orbi to the city and the world, observers witness an institution that has weathered 2,000 years of history. Persecutions, reformations, revolutions, and modernization, while maintaining its essential character. Few human institutions can claim such continuity amid change, such ability to adapt while preserving core identity. The papal transition ultimately tells a story larger than the individuals involved. It demonstrates how traditions, thoughtfully maintained yet prudently adapted, can carry profound meaning across centuries. In an age often characterized by disposable culture and institutional decline, these ancient ceremonies, the silver hammer, the Swiss Guards vigil, the sealed conclave, the white smoke, remind us that some traditions retain their power precisely because they connect us to something that transcends our momentary concerns, linking past, present, and future in a single, unbroken narrative. In a world that seems to change at an ever-accelerating pace, the rituals surrounding papal transition offer a profound reminder of what endures. Like the Vatican ceremonies that balance ancient tradition with necessary innovation, our own lives require this same delicate equilibrium. We honor our foundations while adapting to new realities. The silver hammer that once confirmed a pope's death has evolved, yet its purpose remains. Similarly, the wisdom passed down through generations in our families and communities may change form, but its essence continues to guide us. The Swiss Guards' unwavering loyalty through centuries mirrors the steadfast commitments that define our most meaningful relationships, to spouses, children, friends, and causes larger than ourselves. As we navigate our middle years and beyond, we often stand at our own crossroads between preservation and progress. Which traditions in our lives merit protection? Which practices require evolution? The conclave's blend of handwritten ballots and modern security measures shows how we might embrace technological change without sacrificing human connection. Perhaps most meaningfully, the papal transition reminds us that all leadership, whether of nations, companies, communities, or families, is temporary stewardship rather than permanent possession. We inherit traditions, protect them during our tenure, adapt them when necessary, and eventually pass them to new caretakers. The white smoke rising above St. Peter's speaks to hope amid transition. It assures us that endings give birth to beginnings, that what seems like loss often creates space for renewal. As we face our own life transitions, career changes, retirement, evolving family roles, may we find similar confidence that something valuable continues, even as forms change. In this certainty lies both comfort and courage for whatever awaits us. If you found value in this exploration of Vatican traditions and papal transition, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. What aspects of these ancient ceremonies resonated most with you? Have you witnessed similar blends of tradition and innovation in your own cultural practices? To stay updated on future videos exploring the world's most fascinating rituals and institutions, please subscribe to our channel. New content arrives weekly, each diving deep into ceremonies that have shaped human history. If you know someone who appreciates thoughtful analysis of religious traditions, or simply enjoys learning about the world's hidden protocols, please share this video with them. Finally, if you found this exploration meaningful, your like helps our content reach more viewers interested in these profound cultural practices. Thank you for your support.